In 1942, the Allies faced an impossible problem: how to land an army on a hostile shore. Their best boats were failing, and the invasion of Europe seemed doomed. The answer wouldn't come from a top admiral. It came from a loud-mouthed Irishman and an ugly plywood boat he designed for a swamp. August 19th, 1942, 5:20 a.m. The shingle beaches of Dieppe, France. The noise hits you first, not the thunder of the naval bombardment that stopped minutes ago, far too early. This is a new sound. A sharp, metallic crack thwip that echoes off the cliffs. It's the sound of German MG-42 machine guns firing at over 1,200 rounds per minute. It's the sound of rifle bolts and 88mm flak cannons leveled for direct fire. And it is the sound of thousands of Canadian boots slipping and sliding on the steep, gravelly shore that makes running impossible. You are a Canadian infantryman of the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, and you are trapped. The boat that brought you here, the British-designed Landing Craft Assault, or LCA, has just grounded. Its ramp drops, but it's too narrow. Only one man can exit at a time, creating a perfect, fatal funnel. The men in front of you are cut down before their boots are even wet. Those behind you try to vault over the high plywood sides, only to be silhouetted against the burning dawn. They are shredded in mid-air. Further down the beach, the tank, light as the landing craft tank, or LC-TER, failing catastrophically. The plan called for them to push onto the beach, drop their ramps, and unleash the Churchill tanks to provide cover. But the Churt is a trap. The LCTs ground hard, their heavy steel hulls digging into the gravel. Ramps drop, and the tanks emerge, their tracks spinning uselessly, churning up stones but finding no purchase. They are immobile, 40-ton steel coffins, quickly zeroed in by German anti-tank guns. This is Operation Jubilee. This is the Dieppe raid. And for the Allied planners watching through binoculars from the destroyers offshore, it is a classroom lecture in failure, paid for in blood. The lesson is simple. They do not know how to invade a hostile shore. Thousands of miles away, in Washington, D.C., the observers from the U.S. Navy's Bureau of Ships are reading the after-action reports from Dieppe with a cold knot in their stomachs. They know the Canadians just field-tested the exact problem the U.S. Navy is currently failing to solve. The American strategy for the Pacific, War Plan Orange, demands a hit 'em where they ain't approach, seizing island after island. But you can't seize an island without landing troops. And the Navy, quite simply, does not have a boat that can do it. Their internal designs are disasters. The Bureau of Ships, staffed by brilliant but traditional naval architects, keeps designing boats for the Navy, not for the beach. Their prototypes are heavy, steel-hulled behemoths with deep drafts. In trials off the coast of Norfolk, Virginia, these boats run hard aground 50 yards from the shore, their propellers churning uselessly in the sand. They belly out, stranding the Marines on board in deep, churning surf, forcing them to wade ashore, holding their rifles over their heads, a perfect scenario for slaughter. The Navy knows what it wants. It wants a boat that can run full speed toward a beach, glide over the shallow surf, sandbars, and reefs, hit the sand, drop a wide ramp for 30 men to exit fast, and then, this is the critical part, immediately reverse off the beach and return to the transport ship for another load. It's an impossible list of requirements. A boat needs a deep draft and a screw propeller to operate in the open ocean, but a flat bottom to navigate the shallows. It needs to be heavy and armoured to protect the troops, but light enough to be winched aboard a transport. The admirals at ships are convinced such a craft is a fantasy, a contradiction in terms. They are searching for a miracle boat, and they are looking for it in all the wrong places, in the polished halls of Washington and the established shipyards of the East Coast. They never, ever, thought to look in the mud-soaked bayous of Louisiana, where a loud-mouthed, hard-drinking, rule-breaking Irishman had already solved their entire problem years ago, just to win a bet. Mid-1930 seconds. The Atchafalaya Basin, Louisiana. The air is not air. It is a thick, wet, buzzing blanket of heat and mosquitoes that settles on your skin. You are standing in the bow of a small wooden motorboat, but you are not moving. You are, once again, stuck. You are a trapper, or perhaps an oil wildcatter, and the cypress knee, those hard, pointed wooden knuckles rising from the black water have snagged your propeller shaft for the third time this hour. The engine is dead. The silence of the swamp, broken only by the buzz of insects and the distant cry of a heron, closes in. This is the central problem of the Louisiana wetlands, a vast, 700 billion-gallon maze of mud, vegetation, and water that is, on average, only 18 inches deep. Traditional V-hulled boats are useless here. Their propellers hang low, exposed, acting as magnets for every submerged log, sandbar, and tangle of alligator grass. To work in the bayou is to be in a constant state of being stranded. This is the problem that makes Andrew Jackson Higgins rich. Higgins is not a naval architect. He is a force of nature. A hard-drinking, cigar-chomping, Irish-born transplant from Nebraska, who sees problems not as barriers, but as personal insults that demand a loud, aggressive, and immediate solution. He runs Higgins Industries in New Orleans, and his clients, the oil and gas companies, the fur trappers, the timber operations, are all furious. They cannot get their men and equipment to their work sites. They are losing millions. They go to Higgins. "Andy," they say, "we need a boat that can run in no water. We need a boat that can hit a log and keep going. We need a boat that can run right up onto a riverbank." Higgins, with a characteristic lack of humility, reportedly snarls back, "You don't need a boat, you need a goddamn miracle." Then he sets out to build one. He studies the problem. He watches how driftwood and alligators move through the shallows. He realizes the entire concept of a keel, the V-shape, on the bottom of a boat, the very thing that makes a boat stable in the oceanese his enemy. It's what gets snagged. His solution is a masterpiece of function-first design. He calls it the Eureka boat. His competitors and the real boatwrights of the Gulf Coast call it something else, the plywood coffin. It is ugly, flat, and looks like it was designed by a committee of carpenters who had never seen the ocean. It has no keel. It is, essentially, a specialized wooden box, but its genius is in the details. First, the bow. It's not a sharp, wave-cutting V. It is a curved, spoon-like shape. When the Eureka hits a mudflat or a riverbank, it doesn't crash, it climbs. It's designed to ride up onto the obstacle, allowing the men on board to walk off with dry feet. Second, the hull. It's flat-bottomed, allowing it to skate on top of the water, distributing its weight like a snowshoe. It can operate, fully loaded, in less than a foot of water. But the real secret, the revolutionary innovation, is hidden. Higgins knows the propeller is the weak point. So, he redesigns the hull to protect it. He builds a recessed semi-tunnel into the wooden bottom of the boat, curving the hull around the prop. The propeller and shaft are shielded, sucking water up into the tunnel, while the boat's bottom protects them from the logs and mud below. He's made the boat's most vulnerable part its most protected. The results are stunning. Higgins, eager to win contracts, performs legendary stunts for his skeptical clients. He loads a Eureka boat with 30 men far, more than its supposed capacity, and aims it, full throttle, at a 50-foot wide mudflat. The boat screams, hits the mud, climbs onto it, skids across the entire expanse, and slides back into the water on the other side, its engine never stalling. He runs it through log-choked timber wash. He rams it into cypress stumps. He turns it on a dime. The ugly boat is unstoppable. By the late 1930 seconds, Higgins is selling Eurekas as fast as he can build them, not just in Louisiana, in a modified form to the British Royal Navy, and even, through a twist of fate, to the Japanese. He has solved the riddle of the shallows. Meanwhile, in Washington, the Navy's Bureau of Ships is still trying to get its own impossible boat to float. They are completely unaware that their solution is already being mass-produced by a non-union shop in New Orleans, run by a man who doesn't own a necktie and who has just read a small article in Life magazine about the U.S. Marine Corps' desperate need for a functional landing craft. And Andrew Higgins, smelling the biggest contract of his life, decides it's time to pay the admirals a visit. 1941. A smoke-filled conference room, Washington, D.C. You are an admiral in the U.S. Navy's Bureau of Ships, and you are not impressed. The man standing before you, Andrew Jackson Higgins, is everything you are not. He is loud. He is wearing a rumpled suit, not a uniform. He is chewing a cigar, in violation of regulations. And he has just slammed a crude wooden model of his Eureka boat onto your polished mahogany table. He is here because the U.S. Marine Corps, desperate for any solution, dragged him in. Your desk is piled high with blueprints for real landing craft, sophisticated, all-steel vessels designed by the Navy's finest engineers. Your designs also have a crippling flaw. They remain, stubbornly, blueprints. Or worse, they are prototypes that are currently rusting in Norfolk, having failed their beaching trials. Higgins launches into his pitch. It's a loud, fast, bayou drawl monologue about mudflats, cypress knees, and how his plywood miracle can run in 18 inches of water. You and the other admirals share a look of polite disdain. This is a swamp boat. A plywood coffin. You are planning a global war that will be decided by steel dreadnoughts and armor plating, and this man is offering you a boat built from lumber, held together by screws and glue. The meeting is a disaster. The Navy officially and curtly rejects Andrew Higgins. His design is unconventional, unproven, and unsuitable for naval service. But the Marines haven't rejected him. They are the ones who actually have to storm the beaches. They don't care about tradition. They care about not drowning. They have tested the Eureka, and they are stunned. It does exactly what Higgins promised. It screams across the water, hits the sand, and doesn't belly out. But it has one single, fatal flaw. You are a Marine in a test trial off the coast of Virginia. The Eureka grounds perfectly on the sandbar. The order is given, disembark. You grab your rifle and do the only thing you can. You heave yourself up and vault over the high plywood gunwale. You are completely exposed. Your entire body is silhouetted against the sky. The first man out is a target. The second man is a target. The third man is a target. Marine observers, including a critical thinker named Major Ernest Linsert, watch this and see Dieppe all over again. They see the exact funnel of death that killed the Canadians. They go back to Higgins. Andy, they say, the boat is a miracle, but we can't go over the sides. It's suicide. We need to come out the front. This is the impossible request. Every naval architect in the world knows that the bow of a boat is the most critical part of its structural integrity. It's what breaks the waves. It's what keeps the water out. Cutting a hole in it and turning it into a ramp is like cutting a hole in the bottom of a bucket and expecting it to hold water. All of the Navy's own ramped designs were top-heavy, slow, and leaked so badly they sank in calm seas. To combine a shallow draft, high-speed hull with a load-bearing bow ramp is considered a fantasy. The Navy admirals tell him this. Mr. Higgins, they say, it cannot be done. They have just said the 3 worst words possible to Andrew Higgins. He reportedly storms out of the meeting, flies back to New Orleans, and locks himself in a room with his chief draftsman. The Navy says it's impossible. The Marines say they need it. Higgins is now personally offended by the laws of physics. He has the hull that can win the war. He just needs a door. According to legend, it does not take him a month. It does not take him a week. His designers, fueled by whiskey and Higgins's relentless shouting, stare at the blueprints for the Eureka. They have to find a way to cut the spoon bow without compromising the hull, and make that cut-out piece a ramp that can support a 36-man rifle platoon. Less than 72 hours later, Higgins has his solution sketched on paper. It is a modification so simple, yet so brilliant, that the Navy's top minds had missed it completely. He had solved the impossible. He immediately orders his men to build one, late 1941, Lake Pontchartrain, Louisiana. The air is thick with humidity and official skepticism. You are a high-ranking U.S. Navy admiral, sent from Washington on a train, and you are here to humor the Marines. You stand on a makeshift pier, your polished black shoes already collecting mud. Your crisp, white uniform feels absurdly out of place. Out on the water, a flat, boxy, aggressively ugly vessel is idling. It looks like the original Eureka swamp boat, but mutilated. Its elegant spoon bow has been sawed off and replaced with a blunt, squared-off snout of steel plate. It looks less like a boat and more like a floating dumpster, hastily welded together. This is the new prototype, the landing craft, vehicle personnel, or LCVP. Andrew Higgins is there, not on the pier with the brass, but at the helm of his creation, his sleeves rolled up, yelling at his crew. He has loaded the boat not just with 36 Marines in full combat gear, but also, in a typically dramatic flourish, a brand new U.S. Army Jeep and its driver. The admirals on the pier check their watches. This is the test. The Marines have staked their careers on this moment. The Navy is here, mostly, to sign the rejection forms. Higgins guns the engine. The boat doesn't accelerate, it leaps. The powerful diesel engine roars, and the LCVP, fully loaded with over 8,000 pounds of men and steel, gets on plane almost instantly. It's fast, far faster than the Navy's own 5-knot steel tubs. It carves a sharp, white wake toward the shoreline. You, the admiral, watch through binoculars. The beach is a typical Louisiana mess of soft sand, mud, and tangled grass. This is the moment of truth. The Navy's deep draft prototypes would have bellied out 50 yards ago, their crews stranded in chest-deep water. Higgins doesn't slow down. He aims his boat at the beach like a torpedo. The LCVP hits the shore not with a crash, but with a skid. The flat bottom and spoon-shaped hull the original Eureka DNA allows it to ride a final wave of its own making, gliding up the sand and stopping, high and dry. The entire hull is beached in less than 3 feet of water. Silence hangs in the air. "Drop it!" Higgins roars. Clang splash! The steel ramp crashes down. It doesn't just open. It creates a wide, stable, 3-plank bridge from the boat's cargo bay directly onto the sand. Go, go, go. Before the admirals can even lower their binoculars, the 36 Marines are sprinting, not wading, not climbing, sprinting down the ramp, fanning out into a defensive perimeter on the beach. They are clear of the boat in under 12 seconds. A moment later, the Jeep driver shifts into gear, and the vehicle rumbles down the same ramp, its tires hitting dry sand, and drives straight into the battle. The boat is empty. It has delivered an entire platoon and its support vehicle in seconds. The admirals are stunned. But one, a senior booship's engineer, smirks. "He's stuck," he mutters. "He's beached himself. He'll never get off." This is the second, and most critical, part of the test. A boat that can only land once is a disposable target, not a weapon. On the beach, Higgins signals his crew. The Marines and Jeep are clear. He slams the engine into reverse. This is the moment Higgins's swamp genius becomes a war-winning weapon. The recessed, tunneled propeller, shielded from the sand that would foul any normal screw, finds purchase. It sucks water from under the boat and fires it backward as a powerful jet. With a deep shudder, the LCVP pulls itself backward off the sand, sliding effortlessly into the water. The ramp winches closed, water pouring from its sides, and Higgins spins the boat in a tight, arrogant circle. It is now, once again, idling in the deep water, ready for another load. On the pier, the Navy's rejection forms are forgotten. The silence is broken by the Marine Corps liaison, who turns to the stunned booship's admiral. "Well, Admiral?" The admiral straightens his uniform, a look of dawning, horrified realization on his face. He is not looking at the boat. He is looking at his own failed blueprints, at the millions spent on useless steel prototypes. He is looking at the man in the boat who just solved the single most complex logistical problem of the entire war. The Navy doesn't just approve the design. They realize, in a single, terrifying instant, that Andrew Higgins is no longer a loud-mouthed salesman from the bayou. He is the only man in America who can get them to Tokyo. 1942, New Orleans, Louisiana. The city is invaded, not by an army, but by a demand. The admirals who flew back to Washington from Lake Pontchartrain did not just carry an approval, they carried a panic. The entire Allied strategy for a two-ocean war, from the island-hopping campaign in the Pacific to the inevitable invasion of France, now balanced on the shoulders of one man, and he doesn't even have a factory. Not a factory big enough. Anyway, the U.S. Navy's order is staggering. It is not for 100 boats. It is not for 1,000. It is for thousands of boats, to be delivered now. You are Andrew Higgins. The government has just handed you an impossible blank check. You do not have the time to build a traditional shipyard. You do not have the time to train master shipwrights. And you do not have the time to deal with the established unions or the complex bidding processes of the East Coast elite. So you do what you have always done. You break every single rule. Higgins Industries explodes across New Orleans. Higgins doesn't just build a factory. He builds 8 of them, spread across the city, converting lumber yards and vacant lots. And he does not build boats in the traditional way, one craft, one team, from keel to launch. He builds them like Henry Ford builds cars. He creates the world's first mass-production assembly line for ships. You are a worker at the Higgins plant on City Park Avenue. You are not a shipwright. 6 weeks ago, you were a hairdresser, or a piano teacher, or a farmhand from the Delta. You are, quite possibly, a woman, an African American, or a man deemed too old for the draft. You are exactly the kind of person the established unions and shipyards would never hire. But Andrew Higgins doesn't care. He doesn't need a master boat builder. He needs someone who can use a power drill. He needs someone who can lay a bead of adhesive. He needs someone who can bolt a steel plate to a plywood frame. He has broken down the master craft of shipbuilding into 50 simple, repeatable steps. Your station on the assembly line is frame assembly. A bare-bones wooden skeleton moves toward you on rollers. You and your team have 12 minutes to attach the pre-cut plywood side panels before it moves to the next station, caulking. Further down, the diesel engines are dropped in by overhead cranes. Then the steel ramps. It is a river of plywood, steel, and diesel, flowing 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, under the glare of bare bulb floodlights. The noise is a constant, deafening roar of saws, hammers, and engines. The smell is a thick mix of cut mahogany, diesel exhaust, and industrial-strength glue. And the boats just keep coming. At the end of the line, the finished LCVPs don't wait for a formal ceremony. They are pushed out of a massive door and dumped unceremoniously into the industrial canal, their engines roaring to life for their first test run, often with the paint still wet. The numbers are terrifying. Higgins's workforce, which he has to fight the segregationist city government to integrate, swells to over 25,000 people. His payroll hits $1 million a week. And his factories, which started by building a handful of boats, are now churning out over 700 a month. The plywood coffins, once mocked by the admirals, are now a plywood tsunami. By the time the war is over, Higgins Industries will have produced over 23,000 Higgins boats, including the LCVPs and other variants. This ugly, flat, rule-breaking boat, born in a swamp and built by a workforce that defied every social norm of the 1,940 seconds, is now the single most produced naval vessel in American history. They are being stacked like cordwood on the decks of transport ships, their blunt steel noses pointed east toward England and west toward the Pacific. They have solved the problem of production. Now, they must face the problem of war. November 8th, 1942, 4 a.m., Fedala Beach, Morocco. You are a private in the 1st Infantry Division, the big red one. You are cold, you are seasick, and you have been crammed into this plywood box for the last 30 minutes. The diesel engines thrum vibrating through the soles of your boots. This is Operation Torch, the invasion of North Africa. This is the very first time the American war machine will attempt a major amphibious landing against a hostile shore. No one knows if this will work. The ghosts of Dieppe are in this boat with you. The boat grounds with a jolt, not the gentle slide of the Pontchartrain test, but a hard, scraping crunch on sand. "Ramp down!" a voice barks. "Clang!" The steel ramp crashes into the surf, and you are blinded by the muzzle flash of a Vichy French machine gun opening up from a concrete pillbox. But you are not alone. You are one of 30 men, and you are not climbing over a side. You are running, 3 abreast, down a wide plank, splashing into the knee-deep water. The man next to you stumbles, but you don't. You are on the sand, running, in 5 seconds. You hit the dirt as the machine gun finds its range, zipping over your head, chewing the plywood sides of the boat you just left. But it's too late for the gunner. Your platoon is already ashore, already forming a firing line, and then you hear it, the sound that changes the war, a deep, grinding roar behind you. The Higgins boat, its job done, is leaving. Its ramp is closing, its engine is in reverse, and it's pulling itself off the beach, immune to the sand, to return to the transport ship for another load. It's not a target, it's a shuttle. The war planners watch. The ugly boat works. The scene repeats, but with more blood, in the Pacific. You are a Marine of the 2nd Division, November 1943, approaching the island of Tarawa. The problem here isn't mud, it's coral. A massive, jagged reef surrounds the entire atoll, its teeth hidden just inches below the surface. This reef would have stopped the Navy's old steel-hulled designs a mile from shore. Your LCVP, with its protected propeller and shallow draft, skims over most of it. But the tide is wrong. The boat grounds hard on the reef, 500 yards from the beach. The ramp drops, and you are ordered out. You drop into water that is not knee-deep, but chest-deep, and you are forced to wade into a pre-sighted kill zone of Japanese machine guns. It is a massacre. But here is the critical, terrible lesson. The LCVPs were the only things that could have even gotten that close. Every other landing craft, the British-designed LCTs, all bellied out, stranding the tanks and artillery. Only the Higgins boats, hundreds of them, could navigate the reef at all, ferrying men to the edge of the battle. Tarawa teaches the Navy that the boat is perfect, but the intelligence must be, too. Now, it is September 9th, 1943. Salerno, Italy. This is the dress rehearsal for D-Day. You are a British commando, and this is not a landing, it's a street fight. The Germans, having pushed the Americans back to the beach, are firing tanks Panzersat point-blank range into the surf. You are on an LCVP, but you are not carrying men. You are carrying a jeep, 3 cases of plasma, and 2,000 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition. The beach is a chaotic inferno of burning vehicles and screaming men. Your coxswain, a 19-year-old from Ohio, doesn't try to find a safe spot. He simply aims for a gap between 2 burning Sherman tanks, rams the boat onto the sand, and drops the ramp. Go, go, medical, get the ammo. You drive the jeep off the ramp, straight into the battle, as artillery shells rain down. The Higgins boat has become the sea-going truck of the invasion. It is the logistical artery. It is delivering not just the first wave, but the 2nd, the 10th, and the 20th. It is delivering the beans, the bullets, and the blood that are keeping the invasion from being thrown back into the sea. From North Africa to Sicily, from Tarawa to Anzio, the plywood boat has been tested by sand, coral, and panzers. It has passed every test. And in southern England, in the spring of 1944, the largest armada in human history is gathering in the ports of Southampton and Portsmouth. In the estuaries and harbours, thousands of these blunt-nosed boats are clustered, their new coxswains drilling, day and night. They are waterproofed, they are loaded, and they are waiting. They are the only way this is going to work. Because the beach they are about to approach is not a swamp. It is not a coral reef. It is a fortress. It is Normandy, June 6th, 1944. 6:35 a.m. The English Channel, approaching sector Easy Red, Omaha Beach. You can't feel your legs. Not from fear, though. There is plenty of that, but from the vibration. For hours, the flat bottom of your Higgins boat has been slamming against the violent 6-foot waves of the English Channel. This is the Channel Chop, and it's a brutal enemy. You are a 9-year-old Private Company E, 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. You are one of 36 men, packed shoulder to shoulder in a space the size of a living room. The man next to you is vomiting into his helmet. The man in front of him is silently weeping. The air is a toxic, gagging mix of diesel fumes, salt water, and fear. The boat is a cork in a hurricane. It was designed for the bayous, for the placid waters of Lake Pontchartrain. It was never meant for this. The waves are crashing over the plywood sides, drenching you in freezing, grey water. You are bailing, but it's useless. The coxswain, a 20-year-old kid who was delivering milk 2 years ago, is fighting his wheel, his face a mask of white-knuckled terror as he tries to keep you from broaching, from turning sideways to the waves and capsizing, drowning you all. Through the fog and smoke, you see the battleship USS Arkansas fire a broadside. The sound is a physical punch that slams into your chest, followed by the shriek of the 14-inch shells passing over your head. 5 minutes, the coxswain screams, God be with you. This is it. You check your M1 rifle. You shift the 60-pound pack on your back. You look at the man next to you. You can't hear anything now but the roar of your engine and the engines of the 1,000 other boats in this ungodly armada. You are inside the plywood coffin, and you are about to hit the most heavily defended beach in human history. 30 seconds. Brace for the ramp. The boat lurches. The scraping sound of the hull on the sand is a sound no one in this boat has ever heard before. It is the sound of arrival. Down ramp. Clang. The ramp doesn't just lower, it vanishes, eaten by a German MG-42 machine gun firing from the bluffs. The 2 men at the front of the ramp, your friends, don't walk or run. They are disintegrated. They explode backward in a red mist. The sound isn't bang, it's thwack, 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 as the bullets punch through the plywood, through the men, through the air. You are not in a boat anymore. You are in a steel and plywood box designed by Andrew Higgins, and it has just become a funnel, aimed directly at the heart of the German Atlantic Wall. Go, go, clear the boat or we'll all die here. You are not running onto a dry beach like in the tests. You are plunging into chest-deep, freezing water, made treacherous by the rhinos, the steel tank traps and the bodies of the men from the first wave. Your pack is a stone, trying to pull you under. You hold your rifle over your head, just as the Marines did in the failed Navy trials, the exact scenario the boat was meant to prevent. But here is the miracle. Here is why you are alive, and why the invasion will not fail. You are ashore. You are not 500 yards out, like at Tarawa. You are not 50 yards out, like in the Navy's failed tests. You are here. The boat, this ugly, impossible boat, has done its one perfect, brutal job. It has defied the 6-foot waves, it has defied the shallow sandbar, and it has delivered you to the doorstep of the war. As you run for your life toward a wisp of smoke on the shingle, you hear, even over the artillery, that familiar roar. The coxswain, his job done, has thrown the engine into reverse. The shielded propeller is biting the sand, and the LCV riddled with holes, its ramp bloody is pulling itself, like a living thing, off the beach. It is already on its way back to the transport USS Eureka for another load. It is going back to get your friends. It is going back to get the tanks, the bullets, and the plasma. This is not just an invasion. It is a logistical shuttle service, and it is the only way to win. 1964. The National D-Day Museum, New Orleans, Louisiana. You are walking through the echoing halls of the museum, but you are not in a museum. You are in a Higgins Industries factory on City Park Avenue, the very ground on which you stand. The air is quiet now, the scent of diesel and fresh-cut mahogany long gone, replaced by the sterile smell of polished floors and preserved history. In front of you, under a spotlight, is a real, restored LCVP. It is blunt, it is grey, it is, by all measures, still ugly. It has no cannons, no armour, no sleek, predatory lines. It is a box, a ramp, and an engine. It is a tool, but it is the tool that won the war. The story of D-Day is often told through the actions of generals, the courage of soldiers, and the power of battleships. But in the final, brutal calculus of that morning, victory came down to a simple, agonizing equation: logistics. The Germans had a fortress. The Allies had an ocean at their back. The only way to win was to pour more men, more bullets, and more blood onto the beaches than the Germans could possibly kill, faster than they could be reinforced. The Higgins boat was not a weapon. It was a conveyor belt. It was the artery that connected the industrial might of America to the front lines. On D-Day alone, these plywood shuttles, over 1,100 of them, hit the beaches again and again and again, ignoring the tides, ignoring the sandbars, ignoring the obstacles, and in many cases, ignoring the fact that they were being torn to shreds by gunfire. They were the only reason the 1st, 4th, and 29th Infantry Divisions were not annihilated where they stood. Andrew Higgins, the loud-mouthed, cigar-chomping Irishman, never saw the beaches of Normandy. He never set foot in the Washington admirals' offices again. He simply stayed in New Orleans and, through sheer, unadulterated force of will, kept the Plywood River flowing. His integrated workforce of men and women, black and white, built 92% of the entire U.S. Navy's fleet in World War II, by number of hulls. The admirals in the Bureau of Ships, the ones who had mocked his plywood coffin, had been looking for a perfect naval vessel. They had failed. Higgins, who only cared about solving a problem, had built a sea-going truck that could win a bet in the bayou, and in doing so, he had built the machine that could cross the channel. Years later, when historian Stephen Ambrose asked General Dwight D, Eisenhower Supreme Allied Commander and President of the United States, what was the most important piece of equipment for winning the war, Eisenhower's answer was immediate. He didn't say the B-17 bomber. He didn't say the Sherman tank. He didn't say the atomic bomb. Eisenhower said, Andrew Higgins is the man who won the war for us. If Higgins had not designed and built those LCVPs, we never could have landed over an open beach. The whole strategy of the war would have been different. It was the ultimate, and perhaps only, vindication the unconventional builder ever needed. The boat the Navy mocked had become the only way to win.